All right, welcome everyone. Welcome. Folks are still filtering in. Oh, I believe I can make Aigerim a panelist here, Zane. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome her in. Welcome everyone. We'll get started. This is our second session in Prime's Accreditation and Ranking Impact webinar series. My name is Sophie Konski, and I'm the Manager of Programs and Engagement at Prime, or the Principles for Responsible Management Education. But hopefully if you're here, you're familiar with us already. This series responds to a growing shift across business and management education, a renewed focus on societal impact, sustainability, and responsible leadership as key components of accreditation and ranking standards. So thank you so much again for being with us today. Please do make use of the chat function or the dedicated Q&A function to engage with the panelists or our team. We really welcome your contribution, so feel free to make use of those throughout the session, but we'll also have a dedicated time at the end of the session for some dialogue, for some Q&A. So for the second episode in our series, we're joined by collaborators and peers in the space, Times Higher Education, or THE, to unpack the evolving landscape and practical strategies for moving forward. As institutions navigate an increasingly complex landscape shaped by global crises, sustainability challenges, and shifting societal expectations, ranking bodies like THE are adapting to emphasize more than academic reputation and research output. We now see a growing focus on societal impact, the integration of the SDGs, and the cultivation of skills for responsible leadership. In today's session, we will explore how institutions can better align with these evolving expectations using tools like Prime's Sharing Information on Progress, our reporting framework, as a pathway to demonstrate credibility and commitment. We'll discuss practical strategies, share institutional experiences, and unpack how engagement with Prime can support visibility and performance in rankings such as THE's impact rankings, for example. Our expert panel today includes voices from Times Higher Education, of course, the Prime Secretariat, and a member of the Prime community who bring firsthand experience in rankings and impact reporting. We look forward to your participation and, again, questions as we examine how business schools can harness the power of responsible management education to not only meet ranking criteria, but meaningfully contribute to a more sustainable and just world. So again, we look forward to this rich and practical conversation, and I thank you for being part of this global dialogue. Today, we're very honored to welcome our panelists here, and I will actually pass it to them to give a proper introduction of themselves and their roles. So first on my screen here is Meredith, my colleague, so I'll pass it to her first, and then we'll potato around.
Thanks so much. Thanks very much, Sophie, for organizing all of this. Thank you, Zane, for getting everything coordinated on the back end. If you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, but we'll save time for that at the end. My name is Dr. Meredith Storey. I am with the Prime Secretariat as a senior manager, looking over the programs and the community sides of things. So really both elements that have brought us here today, wanting to see opportunities for strong linkages between the signatories of Prime, the institutions and the universities, and also understanding our footprint to organizations like the Times Higher Education as we work on our own resources and pathways, but also speaking to that wider global narrative. So I'm very happy and excited to be here today and looking forward to the discussion. It's been something I've kind of had circled on my calendar for a while. So Sophie, I'll pass back to you.
Thank you, Meredith. Benjamin, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Benjamin Stevenson. I am Director of Business School Solutions and Partnership at Times Higher Education. My background is more on the business school side. I was founder and CEO of an EdTech, and I work with roughly 250 schools around the world, helping them on quality process, mostly around accreditation and ranking. So it's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to our discussion here today.
Thanks so much, Benjamin. Welcome. And Aigerim, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Hello, everyone. Happy to see all, not live, but face-to-face, at least online. So my name is Aigerim Raimzhanova. I'm currently Vice President for Development and International Affairs at Narxoz University. I've been working at Narxoz for 6 years, in higher ed of Kazakhstan around 8 years. And my background is in international relations and strategic management. And actually, my PhD thesis a long time ago was on education as a form of soft power. So today's webinar is really one of great importance for me. And yeah, happy to be part of this discussion. Oh, and one more point, sorry. I am responsible also for accreditation and rankings in the university. So yeah.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us, Aigerim. And with that, I will pass it to Meredith to take the conversation forward.
Thanks very much, Sophie. Alrighty, so we've shared some questions out of this as a bit of a framework for getting everyone's thoughts kind of moving forward together. But I'd really like to dig in because a lot of the different lived experiences from the prime signatories, the universities, like I said, and Benjamin, your experiences, we're kind of coming from different lenses on the same conversation. So to tease through that a little bit would be very much exciting for what we're hoping to do today. That first question that was shared around the key factors driving the shift in the Times Higher Ed accreditation standards, but specifically I'd like to ask, we've seen a marked shift in how ranking and accreditation bodies have been defining excellence over the years, that evolution. What's driving the transformation towards societal impact and sustainability? So from the Times Higher Ed side, and then maybe to take a beat and then ask on the counter end, Aigerim, how that lived experience presents itself in your institution.
Thank you so much for the question. If Aigerim, I'll take the lead if you allow me. The impact ranking is really the forefront of what THE does when it looks to impact and sustainability. The impact ranking was launched in 2019. So now we are in 2025. So it's been 6 years going. It's growing fantastically. Every year we have more and more institution. From last year we were roughly at 2,000. This year we're hoping to break 2,500. It will be announced at our Global Sustainable Development Congress in June, where we will be happy to have Prime with us. So it's going to be a fantastic event. When we started working on impact, we realized that school needed to give visibility to something else. When you look at the traditional ranking, it's mostly linked to, if I would say, research. So like changing from the traditional research impact to be able to showcase more things that the schools are doing. And sustainability is really at the forefront. I think all of the schools, and mostly in the business school world at the moment, have embedded sustainability in their curriculum because the leader of tomorrow needs sustainability and need to know what it is, how they're going to implement it in their future company and future job. So it was really important to have this notion, and our head of ranking at the time, Duncan Ross, was really involved with the UN on the SDG. So for him, it was really at his heart to say we need to do something and create a ranking that is going to link to the SDG. So the impact ranking is our answer to sustainability, and this is something that we could go in details. Because it's more business school related, I have to say that the impact ranking at the moment is for institution at large. So we only have a few business schools that answer. Mostly the business schools that are going to answer are standalone schools. There is a few European schools, some schools in Asia as well that are going in to the impact ranking as standalone. And we had this year a group of schools, and we work with GBS and the Global Business School Network to try to talk to their school and see how we could make the impact ranking possible for business school, standalone business school, but as well business school that sit in a university. So that's also a work in progress for us to see how we could work with the business school in order to adapt our ranking for them.
Wonderful. Could I ask just a follow-up question before we pass along there? You've touched on something that we as a Prime Secretariat kind of consider for our own community footprint of the signatory member. So we have business schools, but in some cases, based on the size of the school, the level of commitment, we'll also have like the larger college or institution there. Is there a strength or a weakness or a difference, really, I suppose, in the way that an institution goes about reporting based on the audience that is being represented, or if it's the overall footprint of a university versus if it's a business school there?
Yes and no. I think the big difference is going to be on the SDG that are touched upon. A business school is not going, like I don't know one, so maybe you get me wrong, but life underwater or like something like that, business schools are not going to touch on the SDG. So when they enter as part of a larger university, they are just partial. So there's just a part of it and not the global. And also the problem is more and more, and this is linked to accreditation more than ranking. Because of accreditation, the schools need to embed it in their mission. And the mission of the university and the mission of the business school is not, well, it's going in the same direction, but it's not aligned one per one. So the business school have a different angle. So that's why it's really interesting to look at what the business schools are doing, because it's not going to be the same. All of the schools for the THE rank, the impact ranking, have to submit for SDG 17, but then they can do any of the others. So depending on the typology of schools, you will see some push-ins in different SDGs. But if a school is if a business school is part of a larger university, usually the larger university win the game, because it's so much bigger. And when you're looking at research and different things, sometimes the business school is not as big as other faculty. In some case, it is bigger, but in most of the case, it's not that big.
No, fantastic. Thank you. And that's just kind of talking through how Prime sees our signatory members. And it sounds like we're kind of all up against the same kind of measures and markers there for what makes a community member a community member. So to revisit the original question there, because I know we did go down a few pathways, we've talked about the marked shift in how ranking and accreditation bodies define excellence and driving that shift towards sustainable impact. So then over to you, just for the university perspective, it's not often that, I think we've come to this conversation as Prime and as Times Higher Ed to say, all right, let's talk about it. But Aigerim, you're living that experience at your institution. It's not often that you're dissecting a frog and get to talk to the frog about the experience. So apologies for kind of the medical reference there, but I think the vulnerability and the experiences that you live each day with knowing the bottlenecks and knowing the stakeholders through this process and how we define excellence and how you define excellence are so important. So I'll pass to you.
Thank you very much, Meredith. We're lucky at Narxoz because I think the whole idea of societal impact stems from our form of ownership. So we're a private institution and we're also non-for-profit. So yes, financial sustainability is important, and we're part of the bigger holding. And that holding actually has mostly profit-oriented businesses, mining companies and private banks and telecommunications. And they have a non-for-profit wing, which includes Narxoz. So this gives us, I think, an important leeway and platform to stand on when we talk about our mission and vision, that yes, we are an academic institution. We do run, in a good sense of the word, as a corporation, but within our DNA, we are all about societal impact. Narxoz is 6 years old. In the 60 years of our history, we had over 120,000 graduates. And that's actually kind of a lot when one thinks about population of Kazakhstan. And because leadership was always at the heart of our education programs, regardless of the phases of the development, what it means is that Narxoz alumni are often, moving and shaking a lot of industries in Kazakhstan. They're the ministers, they're CEOs. Last week, we hosted a chairwoman of the Citibank in Kazakhstan, and she's also an Narxoz alumni. So we're grateful for this really close ties with the industry. And I think that gives us a good perspective, so that we're not just an academic institution, we are preparing our students for real life. We call it real life connection, because it's no longer, I think, relevant or adequate just to tell the young students, you come for us for 4 years, you kind of take away 4 years out of your lives, and we promise everything's going to be fine. We cannot say that today. What we can do and say, we can equip you as much as we can and as we know with the necessary skills and knowledge, so that you do not only survive, but actually you can lead change. Because the world that they're going to graduate to is going to be completely different to the one when, they entered. So we're very conscious of this fact, of how dynamic the world is, of how, transformation right now is present in every single industry, which is why within our mission and vision of the university, we've established a core value of raising or trying to help develop empathetic and globally conscious students and citizens. Because, you know, hard knowledge today can be taken almost from anywhere, I think. And that is important, of course, but we think it's the soft skills and it's the understanding of the different nuances of the world and adaptation and flexibility and having this empathy, you know, for others, for the planet, you know, for the community. We try to embed this in all of our education programs. And of course, it's easy to say this, you know, on a strategic session, but it's another issue of how to implement it. So the way we implement it is we created a criteria for excellence for education programs across our university, which basically means we do not only want Narxoz to be the best, or we don't want to have each, you know, school of Narxoz to be the best or excellent. We're looking down at the micro level of each education program, because what the program social work needs, and we have that specialty at Narxoz, versus, you know, major ecology or major, you know, financial risk management are different. But the criteria for excellence include internationalization criteria. They include research component, because we are a university. They include academic aspects, which actually includes accreditation as part of recognition for that program. And last but not least, we've actually included commitment to SDGs. How does your program answer Sustainable Development Goals of the UN? And, you know, it doesn't mean that every single major has to get or receive 10 points out of 10. What it means is that you have to show commitment, because even in finance, you can do or study things like, you know, conscious financing, you know, or think about the legalities or how it impacts, et cetera, et cetera. But we do have some innovative majors, I think, the only one of its kind in Central Asia, at least. We have a program called Ecology and Environment Sustainability. So that program actually directly answers all 17 SDGs. We also have Sustainable Kazakhstan Research Institute, represented today by Brendan Dupre. I believe he's on the call. And I'm grateful because he was actually the one that recommended me to participate in this panel. You know, we have his institute, we have these education programs, and in many ways, they help us synergize many of the efforts. We are participants, loyal participants of THE's impact ranking for many years. And actually, when I worked at another university, we participated in the very first year when THE impact ranking was announced. So I was part of both institutions' journey. And we believe, you know, universities have a very important role to play. You know, business imperative is right now so strong everywhere that if we do not have champions across the industries, whether that's private sector or government sector or academia, saying that these things are important, but then embedding it in the KPIs of employees, then nothing will shift. I just wanted to mention one more thing before I pass it over to you again, Meredith. Maybe you know about this, but a few weeks ago, there was a press release from UN Academic Impact, and they have actually awarded Narxoz University with a vice chair position for SDG number 16. So this was, a joint application done with the School of Law and Public Policy, because obviously, you know, peace, justice, and strong institutions is primarily their turf. But we, of course, included everything that Narxoz did. And in the letter where they said that we awarded this vice chair position, they actually mentioned is due to Narxoz's commitment throughout education curricula, events, research, and outreach that we sort of deserve this position. The chair of this SDG 16 is George Mason University in the US, and our corresponding vice chair is Oxford University. So we have this important, task of representing this part of the world, but it's quite incredible because they actually didn't tell us that we're responsible for our region. They just said, you're responsible for education and training, Narxoz, show us what you got. And one more point, I think, to the impact rankings, but probably we're gonna go back to this. I'm also always conscious of the fact that perhaps we need to consider that, the way the developed nations and the emerging markets are assessed perhaps should be different. Because, certain things like solar panels you know, as much as we want to, it's much harder and more expensive to implement. So some things are not implemented, not because we do not believe in them, but because there are other nuances, including legislature and also financial imperatives. So
Well,
thank
that's
you.
fantastic
Happy to be your frog.
I appreciate that. And a horrible analogy, but it works. So, and I thought I got a little giggle out of that too, because I was a PhD student, graduated in January 2020, right before the whole world changed. But I remember that very first 2019 Times Higher Ed Impact Survey as well. So I think we all kind of took a walk down memory lane as you were saying that. But how you said it so simply, but it's really something that has such great impacts when you said the students arrive and we teach them for 4 years, the hard skills, the soft skills, like we need to build them into, you know, not just learners, but kind of global citizens and the business people of tomorrow. Of course. But the urgency of the moment was well felt in that comment there, where they're coming for 4 years, but we cannot, I think you said, we cannot promise that the world is going to be different in 4 years' time as they go out. So maybe just to take a moment to reflect on what you've said there. Go ahead, Benjamin, please.
Yeah, Meredith, if I can just, I completely agree with what Aigerim was saying, and I think we are seeing more and more that students are not that much interested in profit-driven roles anymore. So the schools have to adapt to, like, before it was easy, like the metric that the students were interested was the salary at the end, and you can see a lot of the rankings in business school are still interested in the metric, but the students are shifting. But I also see more and more schools, and I will not give the name of the school because I'm not here to publicly promote our schools, but there is one school which is one of the top schools in the world, and they realized that they just have added sustainability to their program in the past 4 years. Before that, their program were not really linked to sustainability. They have a really strong MBA, and what they're doing is they have decided to invite their 10 last cohorts of MBA students in order to invite them for a free 1.5-day course to learn about sustainability. So all of their 10 past cohorts of MBA can come for 1.5 day on campus to learn about sustainability and what they should have learned. And say, look, sorry, for the past 10 years, we're not doing it. Now we do it. So we put our money where our mouth is, and we offer it for you to do it for free. There's other example of schools that are trying to actually push their students towards sustainability, because if you go, let me give you an example in fashion industry. Fashion industry, the salaries for business school students are not fantastic. It's not like finance. You don't have huge margin of profit, but you want to work for the LVMH and the Hermes of this world. Like it's really nice to work for this company. And there is one French school that is pushing their students to actually think about sustainability and sustainability program in those luxury company, because they pay way more for people that have sustainability skills than marketing and the rest. So they are pushed now their program to actually cover for the luxury industry sustainability, and the pay gap is really important. And they did that because they wanted their students to get a better salary, to get higher ranking in some of the rankings. So it was really interesting, but they are actually playing the sustainability cards to get a better ranking. And there is so many examples like that from schools that are actually working and pushing beyond like using the ranking to grow, but also using the fact that they realize their students didn't have these skills, but now those are skills that are really important. So there's so many examples that are going in this direction, and this is super interesting to learn about them.
There's something quite beautiful about the MBAs coming back from the last 10 years worth of cohorts, because you don't necessarily think of MBAs and think of lifelong learners in the same kind of conceptual spaces, you know, and to align those in a very meaningful way for the educator and the educated, for the benefit of business and for society. That's fantastic. I don't know if you'd be able to.
Is going to be the challenge. Sorry, lifelong learning. When you talk about sustainability, like we know what's happening today, but the world is evolving. So I would compare sustainability to AI. AI is moving so fast, and technology is moving so fast. Like the sustainable is moving as fast. So we need to learn new things, because like, you know, like the science is moving, but it's moving at human speed. So we need to readjust. And I think sustainability, like other things should be on the lifelong learning journey, and schools are going to need to promote like lifelong learning through sustainability, and so many schools are trying to push lifelong learning and not knowing from which angle to tackle it. But I think sustainability could be the best way to actually start going in that direction.
A very good point. And that kind of leads into the question that I was hoping to ask just there, was just the horse and the cart, and the cart and the horse. I mean, you're measuring certain things, so you would think that, you know, it's a push-pull system, but it sounds like many mission-oriented schools, as we've seen here, may already have been on that path. But through the storytelling process, how do you feel that these narratives come up? Do you feel that Times Higher Ed is helping to drive these narratives forward, or are you amplifying ongoing opportunities and good practice? Like, how has that experience been? Did it exist and it's being more, or is it being kind of created as we walk?
It's hard to talk and to express like Times Higher Education vision on that, so I will give my vision. That might be different from let's say a THE vision, but it's for sure that we see some schools that are showcasing some tremendous example of what they're doing through the impact ranking. But my personal vision is that there is different typology of schools. There is some schools that are going to try to play the ranking / sustainability game. They're going to create a beautiful mission, and then nothing is going to be aligned to the mission, or just touch upon the top in order to say, well, we are sustainable and we're going to be on XYZ ranking, or we're doing it for this accreditation body. But like, you know, like you see it in some schools that are putting sustainability at the core of what they're doing. But then if you go to the curriculum, you realize that they have only one course touching on sustainability. For me, if you want to put your money where your mouth is, you're actually going to embed sustainability in every single course. And like that, you have something. So there is some schools that are trying to be fashionable, I would say, and because sustainability is something that the students are looking for, they're going to try to add this kind of like sustainability angle to who they are, but they're not really. And then there is so many schools and I think Narxoz could be a fantastic example of a real school that is putting their money where their mouth is, and they are trying to create programs that are sustainable, that are going to help the future leaders of tomorrow. So there is always those games, but I think it's a general game, and ranking accreditation, it's all about the visibility. So some schools want to play the game and be more visible, but do that transpire in the reality of the day-to-day of the students? That's another story. And I think that's a really important thing, is how to make sure that the students get what they want from the courses and the program and the institution that they're going for.
So if I may add, definitely it's a push and pull, absolutely. So I think internally at Narxoz, what helps us also is the fact that, you know, we are part of Verne Capital Group. And Verne Capital Group is this, you know, conglomerate with HQ in Astana, and they have high standards in terms of, you know, quality or how they approach things. And this is everything, you know, HR practices, cybersecurity, quality, the societal impact. Every year they publish a report actually on sustainability and sustainable development that showcases best practices from each company. So the mission of the parent company is to impact the society. So of course that spillovers and trickles down to our processes. So that's one big push, I guess, sort of like an internal, external one. Then of course it has to do with the management and who are here at the forefront. We're also looking carefully at the demand. So the market really pushes us. In Kazakhstan, we actually have a very concentrated education market. You know, for a 20 million people population, a lot of you know, a lot of expats and international experts are always surprised to learn there are, you know, 118 universities in Kazakhstan. There are 38 in Almaty alone, and you know, we have so many branches of foreign universities opening up. And, you know, there isn't a dichotomy even within, you know, Kazakhstanis and Kazakhs to see all this spread and diversity and range. I think it, first of all, it's because we are naturally open to education, I think, mentally and culturally, but also because we see this whole Central Asian initiative right now growing in the world. So for many, we are a gateway, and the position of the government is to kind of create this alternative quality educational hub, that could be, not to replace the Western institution, but to be there to synergize, to offer some other options, which is why we're very big on double degrees as well, and joint academic partnerships, because I think the academic partnerships also really helps us to grow, because we see the best practices as well. In terms of THE, Meredith, you asked whether it pushes. Of course it does. The accreditations and rankings, and it's a vicious but a very nice circle, because what we realize is that I can say, here's Narxoz, we're great, we believe in this, but then I have to deal with the fact that Kazakhstan generally is not that well known, and this is a fact that I'm working, it's a context. And many partners tell me it's not that there's negative aspects, it's just there aren't enough generally. So for us, rankings and accreditations offer the necessary visibility. When we hire faculty, when we recruit students, when we open up partnerships, this gives us an extra sort of like validity. And then when we learn about the metrics, it's actually a great way for quality assurance. I think one of the best things about rankings and accreditations, it's not even the fact that, we grow in our positions or it helps build our international reputation. It actually helps us reflect on what we do and why we do it. As long as these rankings and accreditations are used, not, as Benjamin said, as a one-time act, we do it, we're done, and we forget about it for 5 years. No, when it's a real part of everyday life and business process, I think that's when you can maximize and scale up, on the initiative that you're already doing.
If I may just rebound on what you're just saying, I was speaking. I'll do two comments on what you just said. The first one is an easy one. I was speaking to a dean of a school that is multi-accredited and multi-rank, and my question was like, why do you go through the pain of being multi-accredited and multi-ranked? And he was like, Ben, that's, for me, like, there is a reputation aspect, but for me, it's mostly the best way to drive my institution, because I can tell this faculty, it's not for me, it's because of the accreditation, what they want. And then also the process of having, like, peers coming and peers like addressing some of your challenge and being able to discuss, and then ranking also give you an ability to compare yourself with some of the best. And you could say, look, we are a small French university, but we are way better than Harvard in this tiny detail, but it's still, we are better than the best of the world. So being able to give a sense of pride as well to some of their faculty on what they were doing was something that was really, really interesting. And about Kazakhstan, I would not be able to agree more with what you were saying. And I was speaking to one of your colleagues in Kazakhstan just 2 weeks ago, and he was mentioning to me the fact that more and more South Asian are coming to Kazakhstan to do PhD program. Before they were doing their PhD in China, but now they prefer to actually come to Kazakhstan to do so. So you're actually really becoming an education hub for Central Asia, and you have really some fantastic program in the region.
Thank you very much.
It's interesting the way that you kind of touched on the different stakeholders and like the number of actors that exist here too, because we have the accreditation bodies, if we're talking business schools, if we're talking institutionally, we've got the ratings, we've got the rankings, we've got the kind of journalism side of things, you've got the folks like Prime, where it's nice, but hopefully it's powerful here. So to talk a little bit about the role you see in living through all of these different dimensions that we are accountable to and that we create accountability around, particularly with emphasis to the role of Prime, because I know you yourself kind of have that duality of hats there. But just how you see it, because it's not as simple as to think like, oh, well, we do all of these things, so we'll be recognized for them. It really is so much, focused storytelling to make sure that your messages are scaling to the right places.
I would say that a great measurement of whether the changes are truly accepted and implemented are, the narratives that prevail in the university. You know, we have a great infrastructure at Narxoz. You know, it's fully inclusive. I think our building also is going through some kind of certifications, which is great. You know, so, but it's one thing to have everything great on paper, but it's another to have it actually in the mindsets of the community members. So I think the biggest win, but also the hardest win, is perhaps the change of culture and the mindset. Why we need it, you know, why is it important? It takes time, but to also allude to what Benjamin earlier mentioned about the generations, I also feel it, that the current generation, I know there's so much discussion about Gen Z, right? Their attitude to work, their attitude to life, but I actually see a lot of positivity, particularly with regards to ecological imperative. Like for them, it's no longer enough to just say, you know, I have the salary. They're really thinking about the environment. They're conscious about their mental health, like we haven't been. They're conscious about the impact of their footprint. And they're also conscious, I think, of the global flows today in the world. And I was so surprised to learn, because I teach simultaneously at Narxoz as well. But in October, I went to Amsterdam, our partner institution. So for a week, I taught Dutch students. I was so surprised because I saw firsthand that there's much more similarity between them than between, you know, people of the same nation, but in different generations. Even 5-year difference, you know, can mean that people are totally living in different sort of paradigms. The kind of question the Dutch students ask me, the challenges about the world, their concerns, you know, their dreams and hopes, because it was part of the conversation. I felt like, you know, it's like they're part of the same group almost. So actually I felt, you know, I felt that, you know, there's a great responsibility with academic institutions in terms of how we drive these discussions. Because yes, current generations, all of them are exposed to everything that is happening online. They're exposed to what's happening in the media. So classroom is that niche but structured format where we can really try to push the conversation and turn their brains around to a different direction. So the way I see this happening is that we promote at Narxoz good academic discussions and debates. You know, we're not trying to convince everyone that, you know, corporate social responsibility, you know, is the best thing that a company can do. No, let's have a debate. Should companies be responsible? Shouldn't revenue generation and, you know, offering job places should be their first sort of prerogative? If not them, then who? But is it enough to just expect the governments to do all the job, knowing how much revenue, you know, top companies are generating? Who should be the stakeholder here? So we're trying to push this kind of conversations, both within the classroom, but also outside the classroom, to kind of, you know, offer this safe platform for the debate. And also to what Benjamin earlier mentioned, showing by example, right? You mentioned the fashion industry. I won't name the company, but there was a company recently that, you know, attracted a lot of attention because they did a fashion ad with, you know, atypical model. I think the model was with a Down syndrome. It was amazing, great PR, you know, great representation, great inclusivity. But then I noticed that there was a lot of critique and also judgment in the media. And I thought, okay, what is this coming from? How could this be a bad thing? And then there was a question posed to the company. Okay, you're using this for your PR, but are your internal processes actually committed to this? Are you hiring people, you know, or within the range? Is it easy to adapt within your company? So it's one thing to show something on the outside, but then what about the inside? Are you committed truly, like in and out? So at Narxoz, we're always conscious of this fact that, you know, showing by example and knowing how everything can be, you know, can go viral in a second. So anything that is done, we're always like kind of thinking carefully, how does it represent the brand? Is it truly, you know, matching with our vision? And within our vision, actually, of our university and our strategy, sustainability is already embedded. So we've accepted this as a norm. Now the question is, how far are we going to take it? So I guess it's a work in progress is what I'm saying, Meredith, definitely. And I think what it needs is a critical mass of people who believe that this is the right thing to do. So there's in the university or any organization for that.
Very good, very well said. And that evolutionary component is so important. Benjamin, did you want to add anything in there?
I think if you look at the way to actually implement it in higher education institution, I would put 3 layers. I would put the first layer would be at the strategy level. So you arrive, you're going to change your mission. That is something that is pretty easily doable. You can do it with like just a small core of people, and like that's let's say the easiest part. If it's not easy, but it's what I would define as the easiest part. Then there is a part where you need to embed it in your curriculum and research, and that's mean that you need to make sure that people understand what sustainability means, because there are so many different areas of sustainability. It's not white or black. It's a rainbow in the middle. So then you have to make sure that your faculty, your researcher understands. So that's mean that the people are going to follow. And then the third one is going to be at the operation level. And here again, it means like major investment, because schools that want to be net zero, efficient campus and things like that, that's mean that they need a lot of resources to do that. So it's quite hard to actually pass but a lot of schools do it, but it's a long lasting process to make sure that you're going to have the full institution following you. It cannot be the vice chancellor or the president of the university going to arrive and saying, we're changing our mission, we're going in that direction. Like the full boat need to follow behind. And as we all know, it's higher education institutions are not fast moving ship. They are usually big oil tanker that don't take a turn lightly and slow, and it's a slow turn. So it's quite a challenge, but institutions always have to have that. And that's why having prime, having a champion in the institution that are always going to carry the banner and showcasing where the institution should go is really important to make sure that it apply, and that the institution transpire it at the end. It should not be something just a nice logo. And I think, Aigerim, the example that you were putting on the Down syndrome was really interesting. And there was one last year in France where there was a movie which was hitting the box office about the Down syndrome people, and they were invited to walk at the Cannes Film Festival. And none of the brand of luxury wanted to give them like clothes. Usually they give the actors of movie clothes for free. They didn't want to give anything for free. There was a huge scandal in the press because they were like, yeah, but it's not our usual typology of people we give clothes to. But like, come on, like put your money where your mouth is. Like it's a hit. You're inviting them, like get the luxury good to actually deliver and give them some clothing in order to walk on the red carpet. So it's for sure that a lot of companies don't transpire it, and we should try to push more and more higher education institutions to transpire it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Nothing else to add there. Okay. This I feel like we could keep going round and round. I'm just thinking, because I'm conscious of time, so we might only have time for 1 or 2 more questions, and I haven't seen any in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and ask one more of mine. But perhaps to Benjamin, to maybe ask you to be the frog for a second here, of looking at the type of individual who might be attracted to this webinar right now. To be a member of Prime, I imagine that they do innately have that societal impact, love and passion, and they're likely the contact points at their school. But then to also have that interest in the narratives of Times Higher Ed and, at the global scale, how they present themselves. I would just like to ask if you have tips or recommendations or really best practices for how to elevate yourself as an institution for societal impact rankings, but B, there are other rankings. There's the world level rankings, there's the reputational rankings. Are there ways that being excellent in one component can help you shine across other domains? Or what would you recommend just for an individual who might be joining the call to help with their, promotion is quite the wrong word for it, but with their bigging up of their own work to that level?
I would go on the impact ranking, because the university rank, the world university ranking is a bit different. But let's look at the impact ranking. The impact ranking, in order for a school to be in the impact ranking, you need to submit data for 4 SDG, and SDG 17 is compulsory. So that means that you need 3 SDG. So I'm sorry, I'm going to give one example of a school. I'm on their advisory board, so I can take the liberty of doing that. It's Institut Mines Télécom Business School in France. They're one of the top scoring in one of the SDGs. And it's a school that is not really visible, but they are actually playing the game. They did an analysis, and they did that analysis 5 years ago, where they wanted to see themselves where they were, how could they be strong. And they did that for an accreditation process. They were going through ASESB, and they were like, we need to understand our social impact. So they actually did an internal review of themselves, trying to at the same time do the impact ranking and being able to say, which one are we good at? And let's not try to apply to the 17. We're not going to be good on the 17, but let's actually define where we are strong and how that transpires. So they did that work of actually going to their different stakeholders, being their students, being their alum, their faculty, their donators, the university that is above them. So they went to everybody and tried to actually understand where and why they were strong. And now they're doing such a tremendous job. And I think when you want to go for the ranking, you have to have a good understanding of yourself. Like, I speak to so many schools, and you talk to the dean, and the dean is going to tell you, like, we're really bad in research. And you talk to the dean of research, and it's like, oh, we're fantastic in research. And you're like, okay, maybe the dean and the dean of research need to have a discussion, because we have two completely different sound from the two. So, but having kind of like a group exercise from the institution to actually analyze why and how they're good, that's the strength of how you should use the ranking in order to make yourself visible, but for the good reason. And that's why I really like the impact ranking, is because it's not so much about being number one, because you could be number one in any of the 17. So that means that even if you don't have a chance of being number one in the world university ranking because it's Oxford, well, there is not like 17 Oxfords, but with the impact ranking, because there are 17 SDGs that give you the ability to actually shine in a discipline where, and again, as I was telling you earlier, to be proud of the institution and what you're doing. And that's something that I think is really interesting with the impact ranking.
And from the side of view of the university as the recipient, right, of all these metrics, I think the impact rankings and the other type of rankings, Meredith, which you mentioned, actually they reinforce each other and they support each other. They are about different things, but actually internally, like when you think reputation, I know that for a lot of stakeholders, Narxoz right now is actually regarded as a champion of, like providing a lot of scholarships, for example. We have 60% of students on full ride scholarships, and this is both state and internal. So societal impact has always been important to Narxoz. We're not, we're positioning ourselves as a homegrown international university. We're committed to offering world-class education, but at an accessible fee, because we believe in this. So we do not regard ourselves as this sort of small elite boutique university for only a few. That's not our agenda. Our agenda is to provide opportunities for those who otherwise would not be able to get here. So, which is why hence the 60%, they come from all regions of Kazakhstan, they come from other countries as well, and they have opportunities much more than just education here when they come to Narxoz. So it's part of our DNA, but then it kind of perfectly translated into our commitment to reducing, poverty, for instance, and then it kind of spillovers to our reputation rankings, and then to our education, so it's all kind of interconnected. But I would also strongly advise, as Benjamin said, to not try to tackle everything at the same time. It is impossible and it's not necessary. Know your strengths, and I would actually recommend to sort of focus on your core SDGs, because among the 17, obviously, yes, 17 would be there. Now 16 is also becoming a big one for Narxoz. But we have about 4 or 5 SDGs in which we sort of focus specifically. And then we actually try to benchmark ourselves and to see, okay, what else can be done? Maybe we're already doing it, but it's not yet put in policy. Or if it is put in policy, is it implemented in the best way? So there's another big rankings agency that we all know, apart from THE, that also have their own sustainability rankings. From the first time that we participated, and our THE history has helped us a lot. We were ranked as, I think, in top 25% of the world in terms of governance. So again, that was a key point for us, because we're all about governance, the committees, joint decision-making, open voting, at Narxoz. Schools are decentralized. And that's because of our sort of like corporate academic history. And then we find out, oh, actually, it's great for sustainability as well. So indeed, sustainability has so many elements to it that before knowing which ones to go for, you need to make sure that you understand what you already have and how you understand it within the walls of your university.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, I think one thing that we have not discussed, I'll talk about it briefly, but we need to also be careful about like the geopolitics change in the world at the moment. There's a lot of push left and right in a lot of different countries, in a lot of different directions. So also the school need to reassess themselves, know why they're doing it, the purpose for the reason why they are in this process. I speak to more and more schools, and I'm talking to like tier 1 European schools that are multi-accredited, multi-ranked, prime signatory members that are starting to actually wonder like why they're doing so much. It's too much on a lot of schools now. So schools need to actually refocus. Like the money is becoming shorter. Like there's less money available, so they don't have the money to actually do everything. So it's also, I think, for organization to like Prime and THE to engage in discussion on how they could serve the global membership, because it's a costly process to actually do like X ranking, X accreditation plus reporting. And it's for, I think now as well, the ranking, Prime, the accreditation bodies to see if they could do something together in order to engage and in order to actually put sustainability at the front and easing the process, having a double thing with Prime, THE, or Prime and the other ranking that I cannot mention with 2 letters. So you could do that, and I think that's something as well that the market is looking. So that could be also something that the agencies are doing between themselves to give even more visibility to the school and putting again sustainability at the forefront.
I absolutely agree with you, Benjamin. And I think right now the whole education market in the world is kind of going through an existential crisis generally also, right? Why we still invite students to be within walls. What is the value here? Rankings is great, but rankings is no longer even, I think, the main business process of many rankings agencies. There has to be more in terms of educating and training and making these global surveys that help universities assess themselves and see how they can do better. So I think we're all kind of reflecting on our purpose and our goals. And you mentioned the geopolitical struggles. With being a university in Kazakhstan, we absolutely feel this. We actually feel that there's actually a lot of opportunity connected to it. We're, bigger in visibility, we're kind of raising our profile. But also I noticed there's so much interest right now. Unprecedented interest, from French institutions, German, UK, American. And I understand why they're interested, of course. But I would say, and someone recently asked me this, Aigerim, how do you choose your partners at Narxoz? And I actually started reflecting, and then I put it in writing that, yes, the matching of quality is important, of course. The curriculum has to match. You have to have enough of buy-in of both sides to be in this relationship. You have to have internationally and globally oriented people working. But I think most importantly, it's actually values. Do we match in terms of our values or not? Can we trust each other? Are we transparent with each other? Will what we do together help us reach our strategic goals and actually help the surrounding community or not. So I've realized that we're actually filtering through these elements when we choose our partners. And I think that's something that we could all think about. And with regards to PRME, absolutely, all hands on deck here. Happy to organize joint events, joint training sessions, maybe some kind of program by PRME where they come in and say or assess, the more the better, I think. So one thing that we can do together is really raise awareness, I think, for why these topics are important.
Very well said, very well said. And thank you both for kind of taking us there in these closing minutes too. So it's the undertone that we're all facing. My office sits in New York City, and so of course America going through this polarization moment, more than a moment, the weight of it. So I just appreciate the reference to the urgency of now and the role that we all play in it. Perhaps if I could pass back to each of you for a bit of a closing word there before we wrap up here with Sophie. Whomever wants to go first is fine. I won't put pressure on this.
Benjamin, would you like to start or should I?
No, I'm French, so ladies first.
Okay. Well, I would say that, you are right, Meredith. We are living in complex times. But I also would like to say that even despite everything, I think we have to look at the positive. We have to look at the positive. We have to filter through what media tries to make us feel. And I think despite everything, there's more development right now in the world. There's more openness. And some things, regardless of a polarized politics, cannot be stopped. Internationalization cannot be stopped. Cultural diplomacy cannot be stopped. So I think we should use the momentum of the positive, even in the moments of crisis, because I think to go down the sort of rabbit hole, it's so easy, and we really gotta tell ourselves to snap out of it and to really push the positive agenda. And I think education, and generally anyone who's, doing something with education, with international organizations, we have a lot of work to do. And I think we have to, but I think anything great can be done only together. So I'm all for cooperation among sectors, among stakeholders, great belief in the international organizations such as the UN as well. Actually, I don't think it's about, when there's criticism, it's not about the organization per se. It's perhaps some of its organizational, dynamics or patterns. So let's strategize together on how we can make it better.
And I think we should look at it with a multicultural lens. When I looked at last year was my first Global Sustainable Development Congress of THE, and I learned from some little university in Indonesia about some tremendous things they were doing in water treatment and how they were helping so many community in Indonesia with that. You never hear about the rest. So maybe the shift in the world will give us the ability to hear more from schools in the global south that are doing some really tremendous work. And this is going to be the opportunity of a lifetime to actually give them the visibility and to change our angle and our perception of the world. Education is shifting, and Aigerim was saying it. Now the Western traditional university need to go to the south for more students because the age gap in Europe or the US, we have not enough young students, so we need to actually change. So the approach of the world is going to change, and I think to be able to follow it, and that's where THE, PRME, and other organizations can actually help to assist the world going toward a plural and a multicultural world.
Wonderful. And with that, we have hit time. So I really appreciate just taking the messages to that very last minute. Thank you both for joining us. I think you mentioned, Benjamin, earlier, the role that Duncan played in moving the impact rankings along earlier. Duncan had always been such a remarkable force for the Higher Education for Sustainability initiative and then that connection to Prime. So it's just wonderful to kind of welcome you formally into our community here and to engage with community members and Secretariat members alike. So thank you both for joining us today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you so
Very
much for having us. For those that are still with us, we'll continue this series on May 7th with EFMD and on the 8th with AACSB. So thank you so much again, Benjamin and Aigerim, for being with us today, and Meredith for your great moderation and contributions here. Great to see you all, and wishing you a lovely rest of your day and evening wherever you are.
Bye-bye.